Radcast News. Hey guys, Ryan Alford, your host of the Radcast.
You're listening to the Radcast.
If it's radical, we cover it. Here is Ryan and Riley.
Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Radical Company podcast. It's been a couple weeks, but we're getting back into the groove here at the wonderful camaraderie where we work. The co-work space for our agency, Radical. If you're ever in Greenville, come see us. We're right on the Swamp Rabbit Trail in downtown Greenville. I am pumped about today. I've been getting to know Nate a little bit here over the last few months. We have a lot in common and excited to talk the business of beer. I mean, who doesn't love beer, right?
Oh, it's the best.
Nate Tomforde is the founder of Pour Taproom and other ventures. He's an entrepreneur, and there's 9 locations in the country now. And Nate founded that business, and I'm excited to kind of get behind the scenes. You know, being in marketing advertising, I've worked on a few different beer brands. Budweiser a little bit about 10 years ago.
Wow.
Up in New York, and then now more of the craft scene, which I know we're going to get into, the booming craft beer business.
Yeah.
As much as I kind of hate the snobbiness of craft beer, as some of my friends are, and you know who you are if you're listening to this, but I'm excited to get into it. I mean, who does? I mean, did you ever think you'd be, when you were growing up, I'm going to be in the, did you know, was this like a dream, the beer business?
No, I mean, I love the service industry, food and beverage, but never thought, hey, we'll be selling beer for a living. Never thought about that.
Well, let's start, Nate, from the beginning, maybe just some of your background. You know, let's talk about what led to ultimately the idea. I mean, it's a pretty unique concept. You know, we've got some for the people watching the video, you'll see the screen up. You can go to pourtaproom.com, learn more about the business. But let's start from the beginning. I mean, let's talk about like just general background that led you maybe ultimately to founding it. But, you know, talk about some of your early days. And have you always been an entrepreneur? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, from the time I was little, I remember just trying to hustle and sell things to make money. So like a lot of people, I had a landscaping, lawn mowing business, saved up my own money to buy a Super Nintendo. That was huge then.
baseball cards?
Baseball cards, Super Nintendo, and then ultimately saved up to buy my own car.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad's in construction and blue collar, didn't have a lot of money. So if I wanted something, I had to work for it.
Yeah.
Earn that money, and then I could buy it. So from an early age, I really enjoyed that, you know, that I could put together some ideas, buy the right equipment, and go make some money. So that carried on into college. I started a clothing line in college. It was called PowerShirts.com. And Power Shirts was in 2000. And we had an online store accepting PayPal in 1999, 2000.
That's early e-com there.
Really
Yeah.
early. This was before Gap.
Yeah.
You could not buy clothes online.
Yep.
You could go to their website and see what they had.
Amazon was just selling books then, I think.
Yes. So I had all these shirts in my apartment. My roommate just scattered all over, and I would be shipping random people shirts. So I don't even know how they found out about us, but it had, it had all the video on the website, and, you know, we thought we were pretty cool.
You were. I mean, now looking back, you were definitely ahead of the curve.
So that was fun. They were shirts that had like the positive one-word message on them, like believe.
You were way advanced, because everything
unity.
now. But think about it, Nate. Like now, that's what's cool now. I mean, everyone's got a T-shirt that's got those things. You guys, e-com and motivational speaking shirts is. You were definitely 20 years ahead of it.
It was fun. We did a fashion show, and we were going to be in Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco, and then unfortunately lost some momentum with my partner, had a terrible family loss, and it just kind of derailed our momentum. So Oh well.
Oh, so entrepreneur from the get go, started in the e-com business, and then is it like every other entrepreneur story? Got grounded a little bit back to the real world,
Yes.
and then it's that's kind of my story too.
Well, I grew up in San Jose, California, so the Silicon Valley. So DNA is just, this tech is part of my DNA, just part of when you grow up there and you see all the entrepreneurism and you see the all the different startups. It really makes you think through, how can I use technology to, to kind of further take something that is easy to sell and use technology to sell it further. So that's what I like to do. I like to take simple things and then not recreate the product, but figure out how to deliver that product in a new way.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that pretty much the concept of Pour in a lot of ways, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Let's talk about, when did we start Pour?
2014, so 6 years ago.
Where'd the idea come from? I mean, was it just...
Well, I saw tech company had like a short video of, they were basically, because self-serve taps have been around for about 10 years, mostly in like tabletops, 1 or 2 taps, sometimes 12. And really what it was designed for was volume of cheap beer. Stadiums use them for cheaper American, lagers. And you would just, try to free up your bartenders to let people just pour beer. It caps off at 32 ounces. And then it frees up your bartenders to serve more wine and cocktails. So it was really a function of convenience and, hey, just pouring pints is laborious. It takes very little skill to pour a pint.
Right.
Tilt your glass, and fill it up. So
you say that. I tell you what, we have a keg here at the co-work space. I must be the world's crappiest beer pourer, because no matter what, I have half a glass of foam, and I know, and I'll watch someone will come behind me, and I'm watching them over the shoulder. I'm like, he has no head on his head. I'm jealous of the pour. I'm like, I turned it sideways. I don't know what it is.
Sometimes it's, I'm sure it's not the best draft system. It's probably
come on,
things, so it's probably as
the rolling kegerator is not the perfect draft system. Come on,
we'll say it has more to do with that than you. So we'll be nice.
We'll go with that. I digress. So yes. So
yeah. Do you want me to walk you through 2014?
Yeah,
and
let's hear it. I want to hear it.
I moved from Santa Cruz, California, to Asheville, North Carolina. One, to get closer to my wife's family here in Greenville, where I now live. But the other was because Asheville was one of the new up-and-coming craft beer kind of mecca places. And so I thought, if I was going to move back to the south or southern region, that would be a good place to kind of test the concept. So I got in touch with the tech company out in California and really talked to them about a concept that would be started from scratch, like a true self-serve bar, not just 6 taps or 12 taps, like the architecture of the building, the way the setup, the layout, everything would be this giant tap system of beer, wine, cider, and create an entire 100% self-serve bar for beer and wine. It hadn't been done before. There was a place in San Diego that had a few, had a lot of taps, but they still had a bar. So people were using it as like a widget, kind of a marketing thing. I wanted it to be an entire business plan, because for me it was about variety and selection, not about, hey, here's this cool technology. I'm a big believer that technology should be used to standardize the delivery of a product, but not necessarily replace people and get rid of labor.
Right.
It does naturally help reduce some labor in a restaurant, but if you're going to open a self-serve place for that reason, you're doing it for the wrong reason, in my personal opinion. We used it as a way to try lots of different beers and wines, because you pay as you go by the ounce.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the variety and selection really dictated the business plan.
That makes sense. And, I've been to the wine bars that have the machines and things like that. I always liked that concept of, because the biggest thing with trying a new beverage is like ordering a whole drink,
Right.
or even if you go into the grocery store and ordering a whole bottle.
Yeah.
So you getting to, hey, let me have an ounce of this, to really try it before you buy it.
Yeah.
Or you're buying your ounce, but instead of buying a full beer or full,
It's less risky.
pack. Yeah, exactly.
A lot less risky.
So first pour opens.
2014.
It was the first one.
in West Asheville on Haywood Road, and there was 54 taps there. 56, my fault. 48 beers and 8 wines. 56 taps, and it was the largest self-serve bar that ever been opened, and the first 100% self-serve bar in the country.
How'd it go? I mean, was it new concept? First
Yeah.
one of anything's always a little bit, dicey.
It was really difficult in a lot of ways. Just the networking, the layout, getting permits and licenses. It was very confusing to the alcohol up there. It's ALE, Alcohol Law Enforcement in North Carolina and South Carolina. It's SLED. Those agencies do not like new things. So it was a lot harder than people realize. It still is hard 6 years later. We've just figured out how to navigate through and educate local officials and everything that it's not a frat party, pay $15 and drink till you drop, from a solo cup keg.
There's something that they think that the bartender being in between the person and the alcohol is somehow, and don't get me wrong, I know that good bartenders know when not to overserve people, but at the
Correct.
same time, there's a lot of misguided assumptions that bartender is stopping someone from drinking more than they should.
Correct. Well, unfortunately, that bartender's not getting paid very well, so all of their money is tips. So they don't want to stop people from drinking because they'll make more in tips. And like you said, that's certainly not a majority of bartenders. They're doing a great job. But again, the idea
they're serving how many ever people? It's not.
Yeah.
It's just unfeasible for them. Yeah, if someone's falling over, of course.
Yeah.
But if someone's falling over at Pour Taproom, you've got enough people there that they're not letting that happen either.
Correct.
Right?
And the way the system works is based on alcohol volume, and wine is less, but it's 32 ounces of beer is the largest single serving in most states before you get to a pitcher. And then
Right.
a pitcher of beer has to be shared between 2 or more people. So the 32 ounces is a good cutoff spot to basically check on somebody, right? Make sure that they're not slurring their speech, not stumbling. And you're not serving people under 21. Those are the 3 main things you have to be aware of as a bartender. So we still have bartenders. They're just more hosting, talking to people about the product, showing them how to work the system. It's more of a laid back kind of like house party vibe, because you can get as little or as much as you want. You don't have to wait on anybody. You also aren't pressured into, hey, you want another drink?
Yeah.
Are you sure you don't want another drink? And you feel like, I better leave this table because I'm tying up this server or bartender's table, and I don't want them to, it's this like game that how long can I stay without having to buy another drink? I already had 2,
Yeah.
So what's interesting is the system, I think, is more efficient at catching that, because it doesn't care how much money you have or how good looking you are. It's going to cut you off when you hit 32 ounces, and then you're going to be forced to talk to a beer host or a bartender server, and you're going to get a sight check, just like a bartender should be doing every time they serve you a drink. They should be looking at you and making sure that you're, that it's okay to serve you another drink. So anyway, that's kind of the legal side of things. As far as the reception, I don't know how many people listening to this know Asheville, but Asheville is a unique place, and new concepts are not that welcomed. Even though we're just a local business, I lived in West Asheville. It definitely was a different thing for people. Now at the time there was only 8 breweries in Asheville. Now there's 43 in proper Asheville. There was very few beer bars. So it was a great platform to showcase local beer, because a lot of those breweries didn't have tap rooms. now they all have these amazing tap rooms. But at the time, we would do tap takeovers every week. Local breweries like Highwire and Highland and Green Man and Catawba and all these places were very excited because not a lot of people would drive out to their tap rooms. They wanted to, showcase their beer and being able to try their beer and put 4 different beers on tap and have them try them, and then they could, go buy what they wanted from the store. And then we started doing crowler cans in 2015, there was only about 8 to 10 places in the country doing crowlers at the time. So that was kind of new. It's canning a single can, which is very popular now, but you fill it up on draft and then you seal it, can it one at a time. And we were selling like 300 of those a month for a while because it was so new and novel. But overall, we did really well sales wise. And I think the community saw that, I was owner operator a year and a half, just putting in time in the community, supporting the breweries. All we do still today is showcase local and regional craft beer. That's why we call it a beer festival every day. We do also have a good amount of wine and cider and have some meads and, a lot of variety. Now, the seltzers are more popular.
Yeah.
But you can still support a craft brewery. They make seltzers, so you don't have to just go get a big brand seltzer. You can still support that local person. It's just as good, better ingredients. So that's really kind of how it started in Asheville. And then we had an opportunity to open a location here in Greenville. And that was really for family. My brother-in-law runs this store here in Greenville in downtown. And so we went a little bigger space, did 70 taps here. And it was pretty bonkers from the start, just very busy, big space, dog friendly. We partnered with the Mexican restaurant Gringos next door to provide all the food, so we didn't have to have a kitchen. So we had that kind of setting and vibe of a brewery downtown. And Blue Ridge Mountain was there, but then they eventually moved to Greer. So we were kind of that big craft beer place downtown. And that was in 2016. So we've been here now 4 years.
So talk to me about like the technology side, where that comes in. Is that all in the dispensing of, the ounces and things like that?
Yeah, there's a valve and a flow meter. There's nothing new about valves and flow meters. They're on, gasoline and oil and different things like that. We have a different partnership with a different tech company now. And so, I helped a lot in kind of beta testing things and looking at customer perception and how they interacted with the screens, because every tap has a tablet above it, which acts as a digital tap handle. So we can change that tap handle, and it gives you tasting notes and the brewery's logo and ABV and then the price per ounce. So it's very informational. It's a huge part of the visual appearance of a place as well. And we can change it automatically. And so the technology allows for keeping a live tab. So you just come in and you open a tab, just like any bar, and then you just pay for what you drink. So you can get 4 ounces and be done, or you can have 2 or 3 beers. So the technology obviously is a huge portion of Pour Taproom, and then you just close out your tab at the end of the night, or you walk out and we add 20% tip, just like any other bar. So.
How's no domestic beer, I assume, like your normal.
No, we put domestic beers
like
on.
Bud Light.
Yeah,
Coors Light,
PBR.
okay.
Yuengling is craft, but PBR, Modelo.
Okay.
We want to have some cheaper, easier drinking options. I don't like to have a ton of InBev products on. InBev owns Budweiser and lots of other craft breweries. They don't love craft beer, obviously, so I don't love them. It's just as simple as that. I try to be the mayor of craft beer, and so most people don't need to taste Budweiser. So there's,
right.
But we will have PBR, and like I said, Modelo, 3 or 4 or 5 options depending on the location. Easy drinking beers that you can come in and get for, $3 a pint,
Right.
that type of thing.
What do you think, starting in 14, 6 years in, we'll get to some of the additional locations. I know you're
Sure.
9 now.
Yeah.
But what have you seen as the business of beer and how it's changing and evolving? You talked about in Asheville, when you first there's 7 or 8 breweries, and now, with the ability for them to have tap rooms, there's 40 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously a boom market with craft overall, but talk about any of the just business of beer in general, the evolution that you've seen just in the last 6 years. What are things that stick out to you?
Yeah, beer trends are interesting. So a couple of different things. Beer trends, the tap room mentality for the breweries now, and then just the number of breweries and beer spots has drastically increased. It's just a lot more competitive now. There's thousands of more breweries today than there was 6 years ago. I don't know the exact number, but
Yeah.
it's in the thousands. Somewhere like 3,000 or 4,000, and now there's close to 7,000. It's almost doubled in 6 years, so nationwide. So we are a national company now, but we can get into that later. But they're partnerships. We're not a franchise. So styles are interesting. We had a sour section back in 2015, and sours were totally new. Most of the sours came from Belgium, and Belgium had been making sours for hundreds of years. American brewers started finally doing that. Sours, aged, it has different types of bacteria, whether it's lactobacillus or just there's lots of different types. So that was a new style. Craft cider started growing. Cideries are a big deal. Most cider that I had was like Hornsby's or something. It was like incredibly sweet, added sugar.
My wife loves ciders.
Yeah, so-
the blueberry cider I'm convinced is like 70 grams of sugar probably, but
Yeah. Well, the craft ciders are using more natural ingredients. They're not adding sugar and all these different things. So that the beer trends, that's really interesting. IPAs have always been big, but some of the other things that have come around, I think now craft breweries have realized that most people and a lot of Americans, they want an easy drinking beer. So there are craft lagers and pilsners. You don't just have to buy a cheap, American lager. You can buy a lager made with 100% Pilsen malt from Riverbend Malt House up in Asheville, like Highwire does. They make 100% Pilsen malt lager, and it's fantastic. So
all the craft beer people are going to poo-poo me. I'm just going to say it though. And I enjoy 1 or 2 craft beers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a hoppy guy.
Right.
So I'm not. The big IPAs just have never been my thing. But I'm just being 100% transparent. I have not found, when on a good game day Saturday where I like to have 4 to 6 Miller Lights.
Sure.
And I have no affinity to Miller Lite. It's just easy to drink. I have yet, and this is your challenge. Everyone always goes, but you haven't had the blonde, blah blah. And I'll have 2, and I want no more. But I want more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't want any more of that.
Yeah.
I am still trying to find the everyday. You're going to have 4 or 5 and not be falling. I'm 6'5", 250. I'm not falling over after 4 or 5 beers.
Sure.
But that's a comfortable level for me on an enjoyment. I've yet to find the craft beer that is that one. So there's your challenge.
There's dozens, and just here locally, regionally, and
Have you tried the
Carolinas.
Allagash White? No, yeah, I've tried the Allagash
No.
White. I can drink
See,
2 of them.
That's a Belgian wit. You want a light American lager, and
Yeah.
there are multiple craft breweries that make light American lagers that are 4.5% alcohol, which is what a Miller Lite is, and they're going to be clean and crisp and carbonated and easy drinking. I mean, pilsners and lagers is probably where you need to stay. I mean, Belgian wits or wheat beers, they're going to be
And I like the ones that are tasty,
Sure.
but like when I'm
Sure.
going to have one or two, and I'm fine with
Absolutely.
that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I love the different flavors. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking to
Yeah.
liberate a little,
Yes,
as we call
yes.
it on a Friday, celebrate a little.
celebrate, yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
That is, I guess that's what I'm saying about the trends is craft breweries have realized that, and now they're making those 100 calorie, 4.5% lagers and pilsners, but they're using wholesome ingredients. They're using malt and hops, yeast and water. They're not putting corn or adjuncts is what it's called into the beer. They're still using good ingredients. So, like I said, High Wire Lager is a fantastic, 4.5%, maybe 4.7% alcohol beer that you could drink 4 to 6 of them, and it's not gonna be too sweet. It's not gonna be too hoppy, and so keep looking, or I'll after the show I'll give you a list.
I'll be down or come over to the Pour, and we'll sample some.
Yeah, we have a huge section that we just call light beers, so they're lighter in color mostly and lighter in alcohol, and so we have general categories. They're not really styles of beer, so we have a lot of styles within that section just to simplify it so people can go to that area.
One thing I found is fascinating, being a marketer, I know as it's grown, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these breweries are started by beer lovers. They're wanting to follow their passion. And I'm wondering when it clicks in to like, I really need to make money doing this versus it's a hobby. And you have so many people. And so how many people are coming into craft now because they want to get bought by Budweiser? Or how many are coming in because it's still that love and affinity for the grains and the making the something? I'm fascinated by the just the balance of those things, because you got to sell enough beer to make some money. You got to make enough money to make it worthwhile. But then there's the love of craft, and then the selling to Budweiser. Which one is it? Like what?
Right. I think that pre-2000, I don't know, 15, 16, it was your home brewers, passionate. I want to do this for a living. I enjoy that, the community aspect of it. And I would still say the majority of all craft brewery owners are in it for the reasons for the love of the grain and the malt and community. That, I think, first and foremost, what makes craft beer unique is that it's locally made. And so when you're part of a local community, you're making a product on site, and you're opening your doors up for people to enjoy that. You're supporting something local. You're not just buying Budweiser from the grocery store and it's made wherever it's made. So there's that approach. So I think most people that are in it for the right reason. There are more and more businessmen getting into craft beer that care more about money than the community. So that's going to happen. It's the evolution of an industry, right?
It's capitalism.
It starts growing, right? And then more people pay attention and say, "Ooh, I can make some money on that." So they're going to invest. So you will see more and more of that, but I would still say a large majority of people are doing it for community and because they love beer. And part of the reason why people are getting into it more for the money is the taproom sales. So I saw that, from the beginning. That's why I wanted to do a tap room and not open a brewery, is I loved beer, but I didn't have the skill set to brew beer. And so I thought, selling it, buying it wholesale and selling it retail was, for me, the best way to be a part of the community, enjoy, connect with the brewers and support them, but then, make money that you have to in business. So it's an interesting balance now, because from the beginning of beer, breweries would sell beer to the pubs and then people drank at the pubs. There wasn't a lot of breweries that had their own tap rooms. 10 seats at a bar and you come up and order a pint or do a tasting or take a brewery tour, but they weren't large bars.
Right.
And so what started to happen in Asheville, and is now everywhere, is that you have breweries acting as the manufacturer and as the retailer. And that's a really tricky thing. I still struggle with it because all we do is buy other people's products, but then now they're competing against us for the taproom sales. So how do you handle that? I don't know. It's
tricky. Your great differentiator is the variety, right?
correct.
Because Jimmy, terrible craft name. Don't ever call your, and I love Jimmy's. We work with a company that's Jimmy's, and I love Jimmy. So Jimmy, if you're listening to this, I love you. But Jimmy's craft beer is not maybe the best craft beer, but it's my example. But Jimmy's isn't going to have, I'm going to say something that's not craft beer anymore, like Wicked Weed. I think they're owned by like Budweiser now, aren't they?
They are owned by InBev.
Freudian, exactly my point of all this. But, Jimmy's isn't going to have Wicked Weed on tap and all that. He's only going to have Jimmy's, right?
Correct.
So that's always your great differentiator is, the selection and variety. But at the same time, I get it. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, every Pour Taproom that you go to will have probably roundabout half of the taps will be local or regional within an hour or two. So you can come to one place like you would at a beer festival and you taste 2 ounces of 13 different beers before you find something you like. I mean, it's endless. So to me, the tasting room, that is our advantage. When you can come to one place and try a beer from virtually every brewery in the area that distributes, that does sell their beer.
That's a tagline, brother. I'm looking at this right now and like to get into my Pour Taproom, the craft beer person's tasting room.
Yeah.
There's hey.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, you must be good at this or something.
No. But that is.
Yeah. So there's a struggle there, and you do have to find something unique. You have to find a widget, unfortunately, to make yourself different, or you're just the same as everyone else. So, always location first. I mean, breweries still have a hard time. They can't just go in downtown because there are regulations. When you're brewing beer, it puts off odors and smells, and you can't just be downtown around $1 million apartments like in Greenville. So you have to still... There are just regulations where you can manufacture and produce beer. So tap rooms, places like a Pour Taproom will be able to still compete with top-notch locations in downtown areas where you're getting high volume. People can taste a lot of stuff. And then we encourage people to go out to the breweries that they like. I mean, we're supporting and making breweries money. So there's no reason for the symbiotic relationship to continue. It just is a little trickier than it was in 2014, 15. So we're navigating that space. I think breweries understand that. They're still trying to push people out to the pubs and the tap rooms, but they're also competing in the bar business. So I don't really know what else to say about it, except that we have to just keep winning on excellent locations and keep offering variety. And then you got to make a space fun. It's got to be dog friendly. You got to have games. It's got to be family friendly. You got to have some food. But you don't need to be a full restaurant. But you do need to offer some form of hot food. And so those are the challenges that we continue to, face as we grow. And our growth has been through an early adopters, kind of friends and family network that we decided to basically create a partnership or a license. So they have a lot of freedom to do their own thing. They use our brand. We teach them. There's a lot of consulting. We teach them how to open the business, to navigate local laws, help them secure a lease, because the power of the brand and our proven concept secures A+ locations. That's the number one thing that we really offer, is that brand, the marketing, the website, social media. So, I mean, I did all of our social media for 3 or 4 years before I kind of outsourced it. So that's that Silicon Valley, just wanting to kind of do things and understanding it enough to get by. I think as far as social media is concerned, we have some of the biggest impact for a bar that you would have, because we're very Instagrammable. We're very, videos, and it's a very visual place. Yeah. Those screens light up at night, and it's an impressive appearance compared to, say, an average bar. So, that the growth has been, what I love to do today is help other people open their own business. It's a big dream for a lot of people to be able to open it up, and it can be, it's extremely complicated to start, but then after you learn and you train on that, it can be very relaxing compared to a typical restaurant, because you're hanging out with customers, you're talking to them about the product and showing them the way, rather than constantly, pouring pints endlessly. Just, you don't have time to really talk to customers. That's what's interesting, is when you come to a Pour Taproom, you have more time to talk to staff and learn about the local scene, or what, different beers to try, because they can direct you that way, rather than a bartender who's literally, it's transactional. I give you money, you hand me a pint. And so for beer, that skill set, anybody can learn to pour a beer. I mean, it takes practice, but it's different than a cocktail, or even talking to a sommelier about wine and the tasting notes. So that will always, in my opinion, continue. You can put cocktails on tap. Margaritas, mules, things like that work really well on tap. But you're never going to be able to like get an old fashioned or a Manhattan or something like that that's going to taste good. So the goal again for Pour Taproom is not to replace bartenders. It's to transition their role from a bartender to a host, to someone who spends more time with people and talking about product and less time just hustling and serving.
So we're in 9 total markets now.
Yeah, and we just announced our 10th in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Opening this summer. That just came out.
So
we just kind of went to the media with that early this week.
Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. We're mostly in the southeast.
Mostly southeast.
Yeah, Knoxville, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
Durham, Charlotte, Wilmington, North Carolina, Charleston, Greenville, St. Petersburg, Florida, Atlanta, and then Santa Cruz, California, where I'm from. My best friend growing up opened a spot out there. So
where do you see all this going? I mean,
that's a good question. I mean, I enjoy helping other people open a spot. So as long as there's interest, we don't do hardcore marketing sales right now. We're very picky. We have a long kind of application process. It's about 5 steps to kind of get through, and we want to, because it's a partnership and we don't have this 200-page franchise agreement. It's very interpersonal, so we take our time. It's a long kind of sales process, so to speak. It can be a year and a half or so from the time we start talking to somebody till they actually get open, just because leasing a building and upfitting it and all of that can takes 6 to 8 months as is. So I'm not saying I won't franchise someday. I think if we can dial in a model and it makes sense. Franchises are not evil. I mean, it's the number one small business in America is opening a franchise. Not just food and beverage. It's construction. It's windows. It's lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Pet care.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many franchises because it's a proven model. And so if you want to, have a career, a job, or be self-employed, you pay somebody some money and they teach you how to run a business, and it's yours.
Yeah.
So definitely open to doing that someday if we can dial it in. The problem early on, which is not so much anymore, is that craft beer is local, and you can't, just regulate the product. You want it to be very unique for each location. And we wanted to find the best location possible, so every Pour Taproom looks completely different and unique. You have, like, our Wilmington store is in an old 1900s bank. They put the wine taps in the vault. I mean, it's this beautiful old building, with a upstairs area, whole mezzanine area, and then Greenville here is in an old World War II era warehouse that was all boarded up, and just this old kind of airplane hangar looking building. And then in Charleston, we're the tallest rooftop bar and restaurant in all of Charleston on King Street. We're on top of the Hyatt. So we have wraparound views. And so I always just say, let's find the best location possible. Then you kind of make it look however you need to. And then we figure out how many taps we can get in there. And so that's hard to franchise, put it in a box. And so there are ways to do it. There's lots of franchises that do a great job. And it's still locally owned and operated. So I think...
Spoken like a true craft, like everything about you is like the true craftsman, the true craft beer guy. Like the mayor of craft beer, which is now your official title for me.
Yes.
But
like it.
yeah, that's why it's hard, because, no true someone that appreciates the art of the beer and the art of the business. It makes it really hard to because there's cookie cutter that's franchise, and I think that goes against like all, I imagine now, getting to know you better. Kind of all of you want to have a system and process and technology, and you appreciate all that.
Correct.
But the art of it all is kind of hard to duplicate, because you go to a different market, there's different settings, there's different things, there's different people, there's different local breweries. And
Correct.
so, all that makes it hard to duplicate.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a path to get there, and you dedicate, a large portion of your taps to local, and then maybe the rest are regional, and you can still stay craft. But so they're working through that now. I mean, I think you get to a certain spot, and you do have to have some things in place to make sure that the quality is there, that the repetition and the standard that we create for the brand is duplicated correctly. So, and I do actually get to finally open a brewery too. So, so I can, I'm finally going to, I found partners and a good brewer here locally. So we get to finally
That's coming soon,
scratch
right?
that itch and
Do we have a name?
be a part of it. Yes. It's a double stamp brewery. It's going to be on Lawrence Road, close to downtown, but it's a unique space with a half-acre private park, and a home team barbecue is going to be there. We're going to have 250 parking spots. It's really going to be a pretty epic outdoor location. There's an adventure park, zip line, actually more of a ropes course that's going in back there by the other side of the Swamp Rabbit Trail behind East Washington Street.
How wide a distribution do you want for the beer itself?
Zero.
Okay. Just
Zero.
local.
Yeah, we're just gonna have a tap room and do that. So the goal with that was its location. If a developer comes to you with an amazing location, it's hard to turn down. And I feel like Greenville can use a few more outdoor spaces. There's obviously some great ones. Birds Fly South does a fantastic job, and just wanting to be more involved in the craft beer scene here in Greenville. I mean, Pour Taproom's supported a lot of local breweries throughout the last 4 years, and now I want to have an opportunity to also join that side of the team, so to speak.
As we close out, any advice for whether someone listening is in the craft business or the beer business, or just an entrepreneur in general? I mean, you've kind of had a lot of experience. You enjoy helping people. Any I imagine we could have a podcast just about that in full. But any
Let's
tips?
do it again.
Yeah, I know. We can do that. We can have a little ongoing segment here. I'm still interested in, we're going to save a secret. Nate and I are talking about, he's got some good ideas and I want to execute them, but we'll come back to that. But any advice for entrepreneurs out there that, in general, like any words of wisdom?
That's a tough question. That's a big question.
What's the biggest thing you've learned, or a couple of the biggest things?
I think for me, when I was thinking about starting a business, it's kind of a relentless pursuit of finding things that are easy to sell and finding a way to sell it in a unique way. I think those are some of the best ideas out there. I mean, just very simple things, and it's like, well, why didn't I think of that way to sell it, or that way to promote it? And so I think if you can find something, I'm not an inventor and a creator. So some people can find, niches in a market where they are programmers and coders, and they are able to create an app or a website or something that fills, a really unique niche. However, I think today there's a lot of creators out there. And so rather than trying to just beat everybody at creating something, maybe take that like we did with beer and wine and say, how can we make this more approachable? all these unique styles of beer, it's like 65 plus styles. How do we educate people on that? And we have to give them variety and selection. So the technology allows that to happen. So I think, you can say that the typical find something you love and go do it. That doesn't always pay the bills, unfortunately. I definitely think you should do something you love, but it might not be your career, unfortunately. So I think find something that is easy to sell and find a new way to sell it.
I love it. Well, the mayor of craft, Nate Tomforde.
I'll take it.
I love it.
There's worse names.
We have found the title of the podcast. Ryan sits with the mayor of craft, Nate Tomforde. But Nate, I really appreciate you coming on. I look forward to, developing our relationship and helping each other down the road.
Absolutely.
And I know people will find this story fascinating, and I love just learning about other people's kind of entrepreneurial journey. So I know that people will enjoy it, and I thank you for coming on, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
All right, guys, this is Ryan Alford, the host of the Radical Company podcast. You can learn more about Pour Taproom online at pourtaproom.com. Look up Nate Tomforde on LinkedIn, other channels. Anything else, Nate, where they can find you that you'd mention? Good place, LinkedIn? Or
LinkedIn's the best, yeah.
Yeah, so look up Nate on LinkedIn, and you can find us at radical.company online and at radical_results on Instagram. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.